keeping us on the air and listening in every day.
Beautiful day out in the neighborhood. I mean, when you like gloomy weather.
Yeah, I do like bad
can
weather.
barely
though.
see the
We needed the
Traveler's
rain.
Tower.
Trust me, my yard needed the rain. Because a little early to start turning the sprinklers on. And
We
stuff
needed
like that.
it.
So
We needed it.
So we got it for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be a decent week. I think a little bit more rain on the weekend. And trying to survive in Fenway Park as they've restarted that ball game. And so a lot of kiddos out there with their shirts off. Everybody having a good time out there.
Well, it was hot, and now it's back to like 58 today and rainy.
Cool.
And just every 15 minutes, the weather can change in New England. That's why I love living here, is change of seasons and things like that. So just be careful out there because, go from hot and then the roads get oily and then it starts raining and it gets a little bit slick out there. I've seen a lot of accidents lately on the highways and even the back roads and stuff like that. So please be careful driving.
Do have some injury news. We have heard
Good
back
injury
from the
news,
MRI from the Milwaukee Bucks. Yes, it is good news. Giannis Antetokounmpo's MRI has come back clean, and the Bucks are optimistic that he will be back in the lineup. Don't know if that's Game 2, Game 3, or a necessity of Game 4 down 3-0 to Miami Heat, but definitely good news for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, and listen, you have to be cautious and cautiously optimistic about a lot of this stuff because we don't know what these players are thinking half the time. Like that's why I was half kidding and half serious talking about Ja Morant, talking about Zion Williamson, some of these athletes where they're their own doctors. They have so much personal control over these organizations that it's almost like holding them hostage. It really is. I mean, so when a guy says publicly that I'm 100% healthy, I just don't want to play right now, in so many words, it's got to give you pause if you're the ownership or the management group. Like, how can we count on these people? Why are we even paying these people the amount of money we are when we can't count on them? And when you hear what they're saying. But a lot of, like I said, is because you're not just speaking to your team, your management, the ownership. You're speaking to the masses. You're speaking to your followers on Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter. And I think that's where today's athletes are. They're not guarded. They don't guard their comments because they don't think that they're ever going to be held accountable because nobody does hold them accountable. So until you start holding some of these guys accountable for I'm having trouble gripping my socks as I'm taking them out of the dryer. I mean, dude, can you play or can you not play? I think it's black and white for me. And if you're not going to play for your teammates, we got to get some people that want to play for your teammates and the city that's backing them. And their fan base, because you have to acknowledge some of this stuff. And I think we have athletes today, they don't acknowledge any of that stuff because we've made them so comfortable.
Ja Morant likely to be back, or actually I should put doubtful to be back in Game 2, likely to be back in the series against the Los Angeles
But what's to stop him from saying the same thing about Game 3 if he doesn't feel like playing? I mean, what I'm trying to say is, and it's not even about fining a guy or suspending a guy, because we've seen time and time again that doesn't work.
You're on a contract. You feel like you should do what that contract.
They don't feel that. They do not feel it's necessary for them to fulfill the contract. And I think that's the commissioner's fault. You have a soft commissioner, just like baseball does. Football's a little bit tougher. Gary Bettman, I don't know if he has to even question these guys in the NHL because these guys will get stitched up during the game and come right back and play because it's in their DNA.
Better believe it.
We don't have athletes like we had 20, 30 years ago. And I'm not saying because of the way I played. I would suffer through whatever to play because that was the way I was raised. We have raised these athletes from pups to the travel ball, the AAU basketball, all of this stuff, to where now as adults, they still act like 8 to 12-year-olds in their minds that, you know what, Johnny doesn't want to play today because, I just don't feel like playing today. I had a bad night's sleep. I mean, I can't even imagine one of my teammates, and actually I did see at the end of my career, a guy came in with a hangover and couldn't play. I was like, take 2 damn Advil and go play. No, man, I was throwing up all night, and we would call it the mystery disease. And now what was behind closed doors in the training room in the 90s and the 2000s is now right out in broad daylight on social media for millions of people to consume. And so then the next generation of athletes are going to be the same way. Where I saw one of my 12U players, I'm not going to name his name, but it's disappointing because I don't coach that team and I would never allow a player to do what he did. He pimped a home run after he had given up the game-winning home run in the first game.
Yeah.
But that's the athletes that we have today, Ben, that it's normal for them. We have to make it not normal for guys to say, I'm not going to play with a slight injury, and there's a big difference between a serious injury and, I'm banged up and I'm tired at the end of the season. You should expect to be that way. You played an entire season. Oh, wait. You had load management. You had off days. You don't have anybody that enforces the rules in the NBA anymore. That's why we have such a soft league.
Well, regardless of how it happened, Jaylen Brown is somebody you can't say that about because Jaylen Brown went
he's got
out
the
there,
scar to prove it, or the makings of
got
the stitches.
5 stitches in his hand. It reopened during game 1, finished as the Celtics leading high scorer, leading rebounder. He went out there and played.
Because I'm not going to question Jaylen Brown, and I'm not going to question Jalen Tatum or Marcus Smart, because I know these guys probably play with all kinds of maladies and injuries and things like that. And listen, it gets tiresome to bring up Michael Jordan when he had the flu, or this guy Willis Reed when he had a broken ankle and stuff like. Those are just examples of guys that went above and beyond for who? For their teammates, for the guy sitting in the locker next to you. But I remember, talking to what was it, PJ Armstrong when he was on the Bulls.
BJ, yeah.
No, BJ Armstrong, and excuse me, and he was talking about it's a totally different dynamic in an NBA locker room. This is the mid '90s we're talking about, and late '90s when I interviewed him, and he's basically like, listen, you come in there and it's 15 different guys in that locker room. They don't even talk to each other. Okay, so watch The Last Dance if you want to see a team that was already dysfunctional but still winning championships. That was the NBA in the mid '90s to late '90s. Now you have 2023, a whole nother generation later, and you have guys that we've waited all season to get to the postseason for you guys to step up and earn your contracts. And wait, what? You don't even want to play? That's the sport, and that's what's going to kill these sports.
Yeah, I think so too. More so in the NBA, but the guys that are going to continue to play hurt
are going to win.
They're going to win championships. Celtics 112, Hawks 99. No word on if Jaylen Brown is going to play or not, because I think it's an automatic understanding that he will. If he played in game 1, he should be playing in game 2. I know. I think the Zion one it blows my mind because.
But it doesn't. It does not shock me. It shocks me that you publicly admitted that, and nobody called you out on it. And Charles Barkley and Shaq, I mean, they talk about it all the time. None of these young players respect them. When I was at the end of my career in the mid '90s, I'll never forget the day that Kirk Gibson retired. And the reason he retired was because all of the African-American players were getting on Cecil Fielder and had no respect for Cecil in the locker room. And Kirk came to me. I was in a Milwaukee Brewers uniform and at the time, and he said, dude, he goes, I can't play anymore with these guys. He goes, I can't listen to that because I want to kill them. And then Sparky Anderson retired right after that and said the same thing. Because it gets to the level of when you aren't respectful of your teammates and your peers, you're not going to respect the fans. You're certainly not going to respect management and people you never see. I mean, so, that's where you are in sports. And I'm not saying, I think it's still about 95% of the athletes, because most of them aren't making all the money. 10% make 90% of the money in these sports.
Right.
So those 90% of the guys struggling to get a contract every year, they're going to keep busting their humps. They're never going to quit. They're going to keep grinding. But it's the 10% of the greatest players out there every year now that you're day to day. Is this guy going to play tonight? You're not going to play tonight. And I think the biggest thing that now draws your attention to it is the gambling. When you have daily
100%,
gambling, that
man.
you want to play, I know you because I've known you long enough. You play these fantasy sports. You are hardcore, not for the money, because you never throw that much money.
It's research, baby.
That's right. It's the research and it's the fun of trying to put together a winning team when you're doing a daily fantasy, whether it's baseball, football, and so many of my friends are still in these fantasy leagues. It's what drives these guys to continue to watch the sport. This is what drives me to watch football the way I do now. I never used to watch all of these. Like, I would never watch a Falcons game or a Texans game. Now that I have players on these teams, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm watching these games. I got to see the outcome.
And how much are you looking at the probables, which I know we don't do anymore, but the questionables
Absolutely.
and the
The
doubtfuls,
Q's, the P's.
Then you'll come in
damn
and
game.
you'll be like, why is this guy questionable?
The first thing I do when I wake up on Sunday morning or Thursday, when you first got to play your first Thursday team, is I look at that. Why is there a Q next to this guy's name?
Right.
You know? Why is Tony Pollard got a Q next to his name? I'll just bring him up because I had him this year. And now I click on it and I read it, and the research is perfect, and it gives you a 2-paragraph description of what might possibly happen. And as an individual fan in a country of 330 million people, I'm like, holy cow. Now times every guy that's got Tony Pollard on their team, or 4 or 5, or like Anita Marks that has 17 teams that she plays. I mean, now compound that. So now, and that's why I can see people getting bitter at the athletes. It's not just about the money they make. It's about the fact I don't know if you're going to play game to game and hold my stuff that I'm doing together. Does that make sense?
Well, my thing is always what their motivation is. So today we're talking about this on a day where one of my favorite athletes of all time just got paid $250 million. Jalen Hurts. I mean, there's nobody that I can point at that deserves it more, has worked for it more, has never complained, moaned about anything, is total team, is everything that you would want to give $250 million to. And everything that I say, I can promise you and I can back up is true. I can teach you about his family. I can teach you about his high school upbringing. I can show you what happened to him during a national championship game, and he still bounces back. But even after saying all of that and knowing who he is, he may just be like, you know what? Why would I play at all? I just made $250 million.
Yeah.
Is that the end game for him? In my heart, Dibs, I say no, not for this one. This one says he wants to play football because he loves it. The money is just a byproduct of his love for the game. I hope that's true. I pray that that's true, but I don't know. And I just keep on thinking, why do these guys, even after you've made so much money, like I think of James Harden all the time when he went to Houston. You always bring up
$200 million shoe contract.
The Adidas contract.
Never
that he got.
needed another dollar of salary.
Exactly. And you would think that guy would just be all about basketball, building teams that are all about basketball and winning basketball games. But you just never find it. And when we did the whole exercise during the pandemic with the baseball owners,
we had no idea who they were.
How do you guys,
fabulous.
like, who likes the games?
Right.
Who likes playing the games? Who likes doing nothing but win the games? And those guys are so hard to find nowadays. I don't know if it's the money or if it's the prestige or if it's you've reached a certain point financially or even as stardom that you don't care about the rest. And you don't care about the winning, and you don't care about looking back when you're 55, 60, 75, even when you're dead. And people look back at your career and they see out of 82 games, you only played 30 for 20 years, but I made all this money. Like, that doesn't matter in the long run of things. I always just come back to, does this person like the game? And if the answer is, I don't know, then I don't know what you're paying for right now, because there's a lot of big contracts out there on guys that I don't think they really love the competition of basketball. I think, like, Kyrie Irving, dude, is number one on this list. Like, does he really like playing basketball to win games? Like, is he out there right now when he drives by a hoop and he sees 3 guys playing? Man, they'd only need a 4th. Right. Would he want to play a 2-on-2, or is it just like,
it's a great point.
Not worth my time? People I know who have been paid millions of dollars that love their sport can't drive by that court without stopping and getting out and saying, I got next. Not that guy. Not a lot of these guys. I think that's what's really missing, or that's the big question mark. And really, it's the big heartbreaker for me. Huge Zion fan. Been watching this kid since he was 8th
I know.
grade.
You love him. I love him.
Huge Ja fan. Been watching this kid forever. And I've always thought these dudes, anytime, anywhere, doesn't matter the money, doesn't matter the game. These guys will play you in the middle of the rainstorm because they love the game so much. And there's a part of me that wants to say, it's not them, Dibs. It's the people around them. It's either their
the
team
enablers.
or their doctor or their owner or whoever's banking on them 10 years from now that doesn't want to ruin them right now. But when you are just passing them along and letting them sit out because of this future grandiose world championship of the universe that never comes around, you are killing us as fans, them as athletes, over something maybe we've never seen before, like Zion dunking over 3 people at the buzzer.
Right.
Or just, I don't know, I'm just making it up. But when those superstar talents are on the shelf, it's like that fine wine you bought for $500 and you never drank and you died, and now it's on the shelf. It's on the shelf somewhere. You never actually used it. That's what I see with some of these, especially NBA superstars.
Brooklyn versus Philly tonight. Golden State versus Sacramento. It's kind of a late schedule tonight.
Come on, Brooklyn. Come on, Sacramento. I feel like those guys would stop and play 2-on-2.
Let's do some Dibbles and Bits next on the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell.